All right, we're back here on the program, Is It Prophecy on Israel National Radio. We're also simulcasting this show on the Messiah Hour. If you'd like to check that out, you can do so by going to messiahhour.blogspot.co.il. A few weeks ago, we had on the founder of solmazal.blogspot.com to talk about how the three kidnapped boys were actually written about in Tehillim, in King David's last psalm. Of course, at the time when we broke that story with Rabbi Katz, who talked about that, the three boys were deemed missing. Of course, they have been found deceased since then. We want to touch upon that because it is now escalated into a full war as a result of all of this. And on the line right now, again, the founder of solmazal.blogspot.com, Rabbi David Katz. Rabbi, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, as we mentioned, the three boys mentioned in King David's final psalm, then it was found out they were not really kidnapped, they were murdered right away. And we talked about how this could be the final geula, there could be redemption, and is it leading more towards that way, as we've seen in the past few weeks?
Okay, so let's get caught up to speed from a running start from where we were last time until where we are now.
Sure.
Right? I think we can make some headway out of this. Everybody knows the story, basically. The three teenage kids hiking in the territories, kidnapped, thought to be alive for, what was it, a week or so or more. The search went on. National unity is at probably the highest level I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I'm 36. I've never seen such unity before. I mean, we've been through a lot of things as a nation recently, the Gush Katif and a lot of these, but this was Avadi Yosef, but this was pretty profound. Everyone got touched by it, and it just, I think this was especially in the technological era with Twitter, Facebook, everyone's at the edge of their seats kind of really applying a dictum of the Talmud in Tractate Megillah. It says, there's two ways of saying, you can see with your eyes or you can see with your mazal. And that's what soul mazel, what I do, is all about. Right? If me and you are on the same soul route, the Rizal, the Kabbalist Musfats in the around 1600 before, says we might argue, right? Because I think I'm the guy and you think you're the guy, and really we're the same kind of thing here. Esav, Yaakov, all of that. And only if we rise up through Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration, can we really see, the real, each one has a specific role to play. It's called two mazals ke'echad. Two are happening as one. Okay? So the reason why we're saying that is that when you look at the kids, I think, aside from what our eyes saw, but everyone's mazel was this kind of elevated. We were all seeing something. Something was obviously being shown. And I think, as we get into the redemption era from the state of Israel, the world is watching the Jewish story, or more importantly, the Israel story, the land Israel story, really becoming told in technicolor fashion. So you might be arguing, and Israel this and that, but we all know the story. We might not be able to articulate it, but we know the story. And that story led us to Psalm 72, where inside we saw a lot of hints, the word Yifrach, when the last names of the kids, we'll see in the word Hamas in conjunction. And, in King David's psalm, when he ends all of his psalms with 72, the story pops up and is being told. And at that moment, one of the key verses we had was, let their blood be precious in his eyes. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean they're going to release the kids? Does that mean there's going to be bloodshed? Does that mean war? Does that mean God will have mercy? We don't know. That's going back in the manhunt. And everything was weird. Now it's a real cliffhanger. Lo and be told, the kids are murdered. There's outrage. And here we are a couple days or whatever later, and we're pounding Gaza, and Gaza is attempting to inflict harm on Israel. That's where we are now. The question then becomes, okay, you led us down this path in Psalm 72. Now what? I mean, is the story just going to end? And the good news is, no. And this goes back, we're going to keep reviewing this psalm idea. Psalm 110. It says, the psalmist, as Malki Tzedek, Shem, son of Noah, says to David, you are a priest, a Kohen forever, by my word, Malki Tzedek. Now why? Now let's go back into the Torah in Parshas Lech Lecha. This is going somewhere. Abraham goes in the land of Israel. Here's the beginning of the Israel story. right? And Abraham meets Shem at the Temple Mount, and Shem, as we all know, blesses Abraham before God. Supposedly there's a mistake, the curse, this and that. Abraham gets the priesthood, and life of an Israel of sorrow begins. Before Shem, the commentaries actually say that was the beginning of the Messiah, son of Joseph program, which we are ending now. So now why Psalms? Shem was trying to tell the story. Wow, Abraham, you're fantastic. You won against the kings, four exiles, but he doesn't tell the story right. That's the knock on Shem. So comes David, and Shem blesses him to David. You should be the one to tell the story. And David does in Psalms. The miracle of Psalms is David allows the story to be told through his pen, through his mouth. And whenever we learn Psalms, you can get whatever story it is. It's that highly inspired, the Psalms. So we found the story in Psalm 72. Okay, that's nice. That's a nice trick. But now what? We turn now to Psalm 86, sorry. Psalm 86, the Gematria 86, Elohim. The God of salvation, according to David, the God of observing this world. In fact, B'nai David, the sons of David, is the same Gematria as Elohim 86. Okay, so with that said, you look in Psalm 86, what's it about? Where does the story go? And how does this go from Gog? And what's the war? Well, take us up to speed. Where are we after the kids are gone? There's a war going on. Is it the end? Is it a dead end? Where are we? Psalm 86 will answer that question. Number one, we know that this is the end of Gullus or exile Ishmael. Ishmael's name is Yishmael. God will hear. And it's all the commentaries, without exception, that in the end times, Ishmael will cause such tears and prayers to go out and cries from Israel that God will hear, take up the plight of Israel, and end the exile imposed by Ishmael, deliver the land to Israel, build the holy temple, and erect the son of David, the offspring of Yitzchak, Isaac, as it says in the commentary to Toldus, Parshas Toldus, the name of the Balatorim. When Ishmael falls down, Ben David stands up.
All right, Rabbi, let's talk about this great point, because what's interesting is you talked about the unity that's occurred, that you haven't seen anything like it. When you think about previous wars, I don't know if there was a type of unity. Obviously, the 6 Day might be different, the first war, the Independence War, but recently there's kind of been a mix in the country. Should we do this? Should we not? But now there's kind of the feeling we don't care what the world thinks. We're tired of having rockets fired on us, and it's time to stand up for ourselves. Is that part of the reason why it appears to you that this could be the end, as opposed to other battles such as the Intifada back in 2000, for example?
The question again is what King David is talking about in this psalm. Now, let's before we give the answer, let's look at history a little bit. Okay? We've been learning Torah for a long time. Would you say that our generation is any better or worse than Rabbi Akiva's generation? Or Rabbi Akiva's generation is any better or worse than King David's generation? King David's generation any better or worse than Moses' generation? Right? You can't compare at that point. And the point is, it's not about better or worse. Are we more worthy than the 6 Day War? It's the flavor of the tears that are coming out. And that flavor is only based on what you're going through. What we're going through is not what they went through in the 6 Day War. Perhaps they did do a greater unity, and were pressed more, and were happier. And those guys walked into the Dome of the Rock. We're not quite there. And if they turn that thing down, Islam is over.
Right.
That's where they were. And we are far from that plateau right now. But the point is, it's the flavor. It's like, when you cry or you emit a liquid, a spittle or tears, that which you've ingested actually comes out. So it's what comes out through the form of prayer, through the crying, that King David says he poured out his soul. I say take that literally, shvichas hanefesh, right? We know the blood and the soul are connected, the level of nefesh, the lowest level. We're talking about the level of prayer literally from our blood. The soul coming out of the blood. And we know, look at the mazel. Here, do you want soul mazel? Here's mazel. What is Ishmael showing the world? More blood than you can handle. I don't know if the Six-Day War was that. I think that was more tears. And there's a difference. Here, it's literally, we're looking at blood. That's the Mazal. The idea... Huh?
We're speaking with Rabbi Katz here on Israel Prophecy and Israel National Radio. Of course, this show is also simulcasted on messiahhour.blogspot.co.il. Now, let's talk about Gog U-Magog, and for those listening who don't know what that is the final war, which then breeds in the Mashiach era, and there are a lot of confusion of what that war entails, that it's a 12-minute war, a 12-second war, it's between that Gog is a nation, Magog is another nation. Is this particular conflict, do you see how that could relate to the final war of Gog U-Magog?
I do, and here's how. It's the same story we've reiterated this discussion today, right? It's not about, wow, is this war more serious? Will more people die? That's not the question. The question is, what is the nature of this war? See, people think that the arguments never change. They do. All through history, Israel's been persecuted, but for different reasons. So, okay, you took the money, you took this, you did that. What it comes down to, and where this war is fundamentally different, we've proven that we are here. We've built the country, we've come back 3 times. That whole saga is played out over every empire, from Germany, Rome, Greece, Babylon, Persia, you name it. And in the end of time, we come back, 1948, now in this final era, and we're here, we're saying, okay, we're done. We're not going anywhere, right? We're done. And now Ishmael comes and says, they don't belong here. No one's ever quite had that complaint before. I don't think when David fought Goliath, they were saying, David doesn't belong here. That's not what the argument was. It was a little bit different. Here, it's as if to say, you don't belong. Now, let's look at that in the context of Talmud. Tree of knowledge, good and evil, i.e. this world mentality. The entire lesson is like Mishlei, like Proverbs. The Talmud's always asking, who does it belong to? Where does the mezuzah belong in your door? Where does the menorah belong to? Every question in Torah until now was preparation. Do you know what the word belong means? Who does it belong to? Who does the tallest belong to? Is it his? Is it hers? Where they steal it? Now we're saying, we're testing, and God is testing and saying, who does the land belong to? And they're saying, they don't belong here. God then makes a miraculous statement according to this psalm and says, in the eyes of the nations, as they're coming back to Torah, which they are, now they're in position to see what God's going to do. And God's going to simply say one thing, according to King David, that they belong to me. When God makes that known, that all the things Israel's done and said and thought, and it's all vindicated, because just as God vindicated David, David said, give me a sign of good, that I belong, that I'm not out of my rocker. God will do the same thing. Israel belongs. That ends the discussion. And that is the argument. It's the end of time. Now that we're here and we're not going, they're saying they don't belong. As if to say, we're going back. We're going to go back and review the lesson. God says, no, we're going to go forward. They do belong. It's over. Okay,
so from a logistical level, because you're talking on a spiritual level, but let's say logistical level, what would happen that this war continues, and then Mashiach pops up and he says, here I am, and then he would lead the war, and then the war would have a conclusion?
On a logistic level, again, we look at David, King David, right? He talks about people that hate, David says for himself, they don't hate, the people that hate me with claims, you overlooked this and that, I can answer them, he says. No problem. All right, you tell me I'm wrong, I'll fix it. But some people don't want answers. They're just really not interested in truth. And he says God is not with them. That's the idea of this Palestinian plight, right? They're showing bad footage, bad pictures. It's not a real fight. They're not really fighting here. And so those people, you can't win with power. You can't convince them. They're just empty shells. And so for that, they get the propaganda machine and everyone basically just saying you don't belong because it's easy. It's a cop-out, and that's how you get the 70 nations and the war. Just basically, it's empty. It's vapor. And that's when King David says that he should be strengthened. He asked for God to strengthen him and for God to show what the truth is, and God complies. At that time, he says, just give me a sign that we're right. Israel's saying the same thing. Show us that we're right. Are we crazy that we're here in the middle of the desert, in the Middle East, and they're saying we're this and that? Give us a sign to the world that we're here. Leave us alone. We belong. and David gets that sign. God does it. He consoles them. And that's how you end the war. Whether it's, through the man David, it says that David is the Messiah in some kind of Gilgal or whatever. Ezekiel the prophet says, I will raise another David. Right? So whatever that takes form in this world, the Mazal, again, what we see is one thing and what our Mazel sees is another. And we will be aware of our Mazel, and we will see God making clear the clear definition of what it means to belong. And one allegorical definition of David means belonging or to belong. And that's what God will do, is he will show Israel belongs serving Zion.
But we do have to have an actual person. It's a spiritual thing that we don't see. I mean, we have to see a guy. It's got to be a human being that will come out and he'll lead us to a military victory.
That's correct. He will. But the point is, what empowers him is we will recognize him by the Mazal will be visible, right? It's that the higher integration will come into our world. We will see events, and eventually it'll come into focus. The exact story, as David is the one to tell the story through Psalms. There will be a Mashiach ben David, and the story will continue through him. You see what I'm saying? Like it funnels down from this right now, it's smoke cloud and dust, and eventually the story will be told as we know it'll be told. The Mashiach will come and the war will end. But David is only empowered, always was, always will be, by God's consolation vindicating David.
Okay, so for clarification on this particular conflict, it does not have to be necessarily that we're losing really badly and we cry, and then he comes. It could be that we are doing okay, we are keeping ourselves safe, we are hitting the military targets, and then he comes. Could he come that way?
We know where we are right now. We are pounding Hamas, just like the kids could have lived. What would have made them live? They were meant. This is what the way Hashem chose the way to go, and now we're here, and we're saying, what is the story? The answer is right now is the story, and you are being forced to cry and pray and ask Hashem for consolation. That's our job. Adkan, right now, ask Hashem to vindicate us and that we belong here. If not, the story continues, and we will get it at another date. But at that time, is there a full-blown war? Did we win? That's the job of the Messiah, to tell that story, and that is David in Psalms. And eventually, it will come that the story will be told, and all is well. But we can only take it one step. We know the general theme. We know it above. How it comes out down here, the exact route, that really depends on our cooperation with God at every moment. So it's a duality. We know how it goes, but yet we still live it out.
Speaking again with Rabbi David Katz here on Israel Prophecy and Israel National Radio, also simulcasted on messiahhour.blogspot.co.il. A few more minutes with you, Rabbi. Let's talk about the U.S.'s non-involvement, if you will. President Obama not apparently talking about Bibi. He wrote an op-ed in Haaretz, talked more about Hamas's president, somewhat praiseworthy, not so much about Bibi at all. Does that play at all a factor, the Obama's presidency in this time, in this current conflict, in this war?
You're asking what is Obama's
role, if you will,
role in this war?
Yeah, is it that he's not supposed to do anything, and that's why he's president, and that we're supposed to take care of things on our own through Hashem, through the Mashiach, etc.? Because I don't think we're getting any help from the United States this time.
Do we need the help of the United States at all?
Is that perhaps the answer? We don't need it after all, and that's why he is in power as president, because God is showing us we don't need to rely on Obama or the United States.
I would say it's one of those things. The eyes see one thing, but the mazel reads another. The question really, asking my opinion, what do I see with my mazel? Because our eyes, we know that the media is biased, and we can't judge with our eyes. We know that everyone knows that to this point of the story, right? When they shake hands, we know that there's backroom deals and all that. So you're asking my opinion. What does my mazel see with Obama? Good question. It's a couple things, which the story will tell it as it goes. Either he's playing into the propaganda, right? He's not. You're not going to convince him either way. Maybe he's a closet returner to Hashem, and really Hashem's got everyone fooled with that one, Or maybe he wants to cause the tears to come and help Israel pray. We don't know. I would say if anybody's got a hidden mazal, that's the guy.
Right.
That's a piece that's going to be very hard to read, that Mazal. And it's a difficult one because, is he Gog or is he a Baal Tshuva Ger? And the whole world's going to be Ger Toshav in the end when it's all said and done, the temple. So where he is in that story, that's a tough one. That's really tough. I mean, because that's a sealed door.
He is very difficult to figure out, that's to say the least. Very mysterious, even though he's been president for 6 years. There's still a lot of information out there we don't know about. We're not exactly sure what he studied. We're not exactly sure where he was born. I mean, very mysterious.
He might just be an extra in the story. He might not even be one of the main characters.
Yeah.
But I will say this. When we really get to the good stuff, whatever that is, all characters will be revealed. We will know where he ends up. But right now, I think this is a home front issue. I don't think even Putin, they obviously have a part, but in terms of Gog U-Magog and
Rabbi, you with us? Okay. Again, we want to thank.
Hello?
Okay, sorry about that. We lost you for a second. Okay, so we're actually out of time. Again, if you want to check out the Rabbi's blog, go to soulmazal.blogspot.com. A lot of great stuff there. And if you have any questions, you can email this program at messiahhour@gmail.com. If you'd like to get a copy of this episode, go to messiahhour.blogspot.co.il. You'll see it there. And please send it out to your friends. Rabbi, thank you for your time this day. Be safe out there, of course, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Be well.